It's back to 1960s Kinloch, where we join the crew of the girl Maggie, Sandy Hoynes and first mate Hamish. The new year has just turned, and it's now 1968. But what about the old New Year? Over the centuries, kings, queens and governments have argued as to when one year ends and another begins. In most cases, loyal subjects or citizens bow heads and obey, raising glasses at the appropriate time. Not so in Kinloch. Well, maybe that's unfair. Whilst the town's fishing community were happy to fall into step with the strictures of the Julian calendar, they never forgot the old New Year, the 12th of January, as they reckoned it. Others weren't convinced by this date, but for their forebears, the Vikings, this was the day they took to their halls, longships, farms, fields and forts to celebrate another shift in time. Quite why they did so is open to question, but there remains no doubts in the minds of Kinloch's men of the sea. Aye, for on Hogmanay, the 1st of January, and in many cases the days that followed, they rehearsed happily for the time not far hence when they could take to the hills and visit the old stones to do things properly. This in the footsteps of their fathers, grandfathers and great-grandfathers. In fact, a line stretching back beyond the reach of memory. And in places like Kinloch, memory is long. Men and women can remember the affairs of their ancestors, sometimes to quite an astonishing degree. The 3 times great granny who stole some fish and faced the assizes. The distant ancestor who strayed far from the shores of Kinloch and made a fortune in the continental wars of Europe, or swashed his buckle on the Spanish Main, distant Africa, the New World, or even the Antipodes. Then the woman who, by sheer force of will and generosity of heart, fed a whole community at time of great hardship, using only her talents for organisation, guile, and an unbending sense of right and wrong. It may have been men who went to sea, but the women folk ran their homes, managed their purses, brought up the children, and ruled the roost. To this day one might be tempted to have a falling out with one of the town's menfolk, but woe betide those who take up the cudgels against the women of Kinloch. Though these tales march far back in time, they can't go far enough, for it's the soul that stirs the blood, the instinct that beats the drum to follow the old ways. And what ways they were! The folk from the north carried the torch, its light guiding them to the old stones upon the hill upon Kintyre's east coast. But they were by no means the first. The dragon and snake prows of their vessels merely replaced the horse totems that broke the waves for mariners from much further afield, so long ago. But even before that, there were others. Who built these tiny monuments, nobody knows. In order to fill their nets with fish, to provide the flame to warm them on the coldest winter night, to heal the sick, to keep evil eye at bay, the old man and the old woman were held in the greatest reverence by men clad only in skins and hope. No taller than the knee they are, but even now, in these days of great technology and advancement, they have a rare power. Like the great cathedrals or the islands where God is close to man, they reign. For these are the thin places where earth touches other realms, places still beyond our ken. The old stones, male and female, man and woman, stand as reminders that other worlds, other possibilities exist. For whatever we think we know so little. No matter how clever we become, we will only ever catch a glimpse of what is real, of what leads us on to where all has meaning. But, as others scoffed every year, a little band of fishermen took to the sound in all manner of weather conditions of which January could conceive, and made their way to the little shack they'd built and added to over many years. There they'd partake in convivial tales and refreshments, before the trek up the hill, the path to pay obeisance to the old stones, always in good time for midnight. On this particular evening, we find Sandy Hoynes, Hamish, and fellow travellers on this well-trodden path by sea and land. But Hoynes, ever the optimist, is on a mission of mercy. The good folk of Firdale, not far up the coast, are in distress. The hotel in the village is serving whisky at such an astronomical rate of exchange that neither man nor woman can afford to slake their thirst. But Hoynes has the solution. "Ach, it's a mission of mercy, Hamish, an act of humanity and good conscience, right enough." But Hamish isn't convinced. And it's not just the fishermen of Kinloch who have their eyes on the old stones this year, as this old world turns. Join the crew of the Girl Maggie, old colleagues and revellers, for a journey into warmth, humour, tall tales and echoes of the past in A Toast to the Old Stones.